Thank you for turning to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at Earth's Opus Omnibus. What the heck is that? Well, it's a little binder I put together of various rule changes for our D&D game. These are all based on AD&D First Edition, and they are used at our table. And I thought it was important that my players have a copy of this, so I went ahead and I wrote up. It's about 60 pages long. As you can see, I just used the inserts from the old Monstrous binder books. And there's my first page. The first 40 or so pages are spells, 1st through 9th level magic user spells. And then the last little bit is about the players themselves, how the strength, intelligence, wisdom acts in our campaign. That's the part I'm going to concentrate on today. It's going to be the back end of this, and it's going to be about the statistics that the characters have and how those work and how we do initiative. I've touched on the initiative before in a prior video. I did it about almost a year and a half ago by now. This one has some alterations to that one. I found that I had actually made an erroneous statement in my original one, and I'll correct it when I go ahead and I show that part of it. So today we're just going to take a look at the back part of Earth's Opus Omnibus, hard to say, otherwise known by us as the OO, and we're going to take a look at the statistics, magic resistance, and that stuff that affects players directly, and how I've kind of used some of this to advance the game a little bit beyond the 12th to 14th level or so that the original AD&D books were designed to top out at. So the OO on today on page 121. All right, so the first page in the OO that deals with the actual player character statistics, I went in order of the original AD&D statistics. So the first thing we deal with is strength bonus. It starts at 16, which is where the first bonus for strength is, plus 1 damage. And then I've just got it restated from the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master Guide under Girdles of Giant Strength, and under Deities and Demigods. So this is just a recapitulation of that. I didn't change any of this. This is just as it was written. The magic resistance chart. This also is not anything that I have changed. My players have always kind of struggled to figure out magic resistance. So I made up this chart so that they wouldn't always have to rely on me to do it. I carried a lot of this stuff just in my head for years, but I thought it would be nice if they had a resource where they could simply look at it on their own between games or even during a game. So, for instance, on the Magic User Resistance chart, if a creature has 10% MR and I am 14th level, 10% minus 15 is -5 or 0. So he has no magic resistance against my spell. If a creature has 5% MR and I am 9th level, it's 9th level, you add 10%. So 10% plus 5 is 15. He now has 15% effective MR against me. So the magic resistance charts always were designed to go up or down based on level. And I took this one from level 1 where you add 50% to any MR check. And I took it to level 31 where it's minus 100%. So not that we're up in those levels, but it's good to have a complete chart. So with this chart, it's just a quick glance and you can figure out magic resistance. Going to the next page, I've mentioned this in a few videos before. Magic user and cleric bonus spells for intelligence and or wisdom. We allow magic users to gain bonus spells just like clerics do. Magic users gain it for high intelligence, just as clerics gain it for high wisdom. We have found this to be a way to make the magic user a lot more viable. If you have a magic user, for instance, starting at 17th level, at first level, 17 intelligence, at first level, he would have 2 bonus first level spells for a total of 3. And then as he went up, he would gain the others. This, too, is taken directly from the AD&D original rulebooks. All I did was compile it into a chart here. Again, so my players would be able to easily look and say, oh, I've got a 19 intelligence. What bonus spells do I get? This way, it wasn't always a matter of when they got to the game, they'd have to ask me. Not that they couldn't figure it out, but honestly, let's be honest. If you're the DM primarily, and I am about 95% of the time, you're the one figuring this kind of stuff out for the players. They generally don't look at it between games. This next section is original to me. I never thought it fair that a magic user could take 1 point of damage and lose a spell. So I put in a percentage chance of retaining the spell if you take damage. Formula is very simple. It's your intelligence plus your level times 2 minus the damage it equaled. That percentage chance of casting the spell. You need to throw that number or lower. For instance, I have a 9th level mage with a 17 intelligence taking 12 points of damage while casting. 17 intelligence is 17 plus 18 times 2. 9 times 2 is 18. 17 plus 18 is 35. 35 minus 12 for the points of damage he took equals a 23% chance to successfully cast the spell. If he throws 23% or less on the percentage dice, he retains the spell. As you can see, it's less than 1 in 4 in this example, but that was the idea. I still wanted the magic users to lose the spell most of the time, but I wanted them to have a chance to retain it. And then I've got some notes here. Damage taken off an armor spell counts as if the magic user was himself hit. So it does count as if he lost hit points. And if struck while protected by a stone skin, the stone skin is used up, but the casting is not interrupted. We don't, unless the only exception to that would be like a giant boulder that would, knock him on his butt or something like that, which our stone skin will protect you from the damage, but will not protect you from what in Champions is called knockback. So I did this to give magic users, again, a little more viability, so they weren't taking 1 point of damage and always losing a spell. And when I go to the initiative system, I'm going to show you how we know clearly if the magic user is casting or not in our campaign. And then I've given magic users a bonus to touch spell attacks. I give the caster the missile bonus for their dexterity, plus 1 for each combat chart achieved. That's to reflect their level. So for my example, again, a 9th level mage with a 17 dex would get plus 2 to touch attack, and plus 2 for being on the 2nd combat chart. So he'll gain a total of plus 4 to hit with a touch attack. A touch attack, you're not trying to penetrate the armor or anything. You're just trying to lay a hand on him. But granted, a beastie in melee might not be easy to just set a hand on. So I figured magic users needed a little help in that regard. In our campaign, then if you had a 17 dexterity on your first chart, it would be 17 for your dex. You get plus 2, and then you get plus 1 for being on your chart. So if you're using that Shocking Grasp at first level, you'd still be plus 3 to hit with the Shocking Grasp. I think that's commensurate with what the Thief does, what clerics and fighters do, and I haven't had a problem. I've been using this system for a couple of decades now, and I've never had a problem with it. This is the area where I kind of expanded damage for spells, and this is where I felt that I kind of needed to kind of grow D&D up a little bit. So for the damage on the spells, we've changed it from what's in the books to a Bigby's Clenched Fist. If you roll a 1 through 12, you roll a hit on that. You don't roll the hit, you roll the effect. So if it's a 1 to 12, in our game you do 2 die 8 plus 1 damage per caster level. So if you are a 12th level caster, you would throw 2 die 8 plus 12. This way you're getting some good guaranteed damage, and it makes the spell more worth casting. For instance, if you roll 20, you're throwing 8 die 8 plus 1 damage per level, and the opponent is stunned for the next 3 rounds. This becomes a very key spell to take and to cast in our campaign. Bigby's Crushing Hand does much the same. For the first round, it's 2 die 10 plus 1 damage per caster level, all the way up to the 4th round and beyond, where it's 8 die 10 plus 1 damage per caster level. So the damage mounts up very quickly. Meteor Swarm, 4 to 40 points of damage. Oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to do so much damage. Roll a 1, and a 2. That's happened to me with a Meteor Swarm. And I only had the guy in the 1 effect, and he made a saving throw. So of that 4 points of damage, he took 2. I wanted to change that. Now I make it, the large spheres are 1 die 8 per 2 caster levels. Again, I like to award the level of the caster. And the damage for the small spheres is a die 6 plus 2, die 6 per 2 caster levels. Now the small spheres theoretically could be a little low, but it hasn't really hurt anything in our campaign, so I haven't seen a need to change it. If you have any feedback on that, you feel that's too low, please let me know. Polymorph Self. The healing effect only occurs the first 3 times the caster returns to his natural form. I had this spell getting abused big time. I wanted to put it down in writing, and my group, by the way, everyone got a copy of the OO, and we all agreed that these would be official rules, to be discussed at need, but they would be official rules. For the power word spells, I'm going to relist this. I'm going to actually list the hit points based on power word. But for today, the hit points of the target affected by all power word spells is double that listed in the books. So power word kill is 90 points. Not in our campaign, it's 180. So when that book was written, when the Player's Handbook was written in 1978, it didn't reflect a lot of high-level damage or high hit point creatures. And that Prismatic Sphere, Prismatic Wall, and Spray, they deal the double the damage listed in the books. And this has actually served us very well. This makes the sphere something that you are afraid to walk through. If you've got a bunch of pluses to your save and you think you make all your saving throws versus the going insane or going sent to another plane, you're still looking at a lot of damage. We do allow MR checks, of course, but you get one MR check for the entire spell. Same with the Meteor Swarm. If you're hit by 3 or even 4 spheres, you don't get 4 separate MR checks, you get 1. And then we come down to our initiative system. And I've shown this before in, I think, my second video. What we do in our game is you get bonuses for your initiative based on your dexterity. Starting at 16, it's a -1 modifier, all the way to an 18, which is -3, a 21 is -6, and a 25 is -10. And the AC bonuses and the missile and saves versus fireballs and things, that's the same. These are both out of the books. This is mine. So how does this work? Well, I'll show you. Here's my notes on what the save bonus is. Only external spells such as fireballs, lightning bolts, and breath weapons. Boots of speed, striding and springing, and haste spells, etc. never increase initiative bonus. So you take that potion of speed. In our campaign, it does not make you faster. Or it does not make your initiative faster. There's a difference between speed and quickness. Initiative is determined by rolling 1 die 10. That number is the segment in which the character acts, counting the segments up from 1 to 10. The base 1 die 10 roll is modified downward by the character's initiative modifier. For example, a character with an 18 dexterity rolls a 7 on 1 die 10. That character would act in segment 4. 7 minus 3 equals 4. He would go in the 4th segment of 10. And that's how we've been doing initiative in our campaign for 40 years. It's worked very well. I've actually had a number of DMs who have borrowed this, swiped it, whatever you want to call it, and used it in their campaigns and have had good effect with it. This is how we tell how spells are cast, or when a spell is being cast. For instance, I want to cast a fireball. We'll go back to my chart here so I can show the example on the chart. I have a 17 dexterity, and I roll a natural 5. So my 5 becomes a -2, becomes a 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. So I would go on the 3rd segment. As the DM, I would count the segments upward from 1. Segment 1, segment 2, segment 3. In segment 3, the magic user character says, yes, I begin casting my spell. He goes in 3, and the spell has 3 casting segments. It's a 3-segment casting time. 3 plus 3 is 6. The spell begins in 3 and will go off in 6. If he's struck while casting in 3, 4, 5, or 6, then he loses the spell. The way we determine if something ties, for instance, there's a fighter that's going to strike him in 3. They throw a 6-sider. The high 6-sider goes first. And we enjoy the 6-sider simply because we do get ties, and there are times I'll just say, okay, it's simultaneous. There's other times we'll keep rolling until we don't have a tie. But the benefit of that, right, in this situation is if the fighter throws a 6, so he'll swing early against my 4 on my 6-sider. So he's thrown a 6 on a 6-sider, I've thrown a 4. He will swing before I begin to cast. So if he hits me and damages me, per the way we play it, it does not count as damage taken while casting the spell, because I had not cast it yet. So I am able to go ahead and cast the spell as normal. So I like the way we do that. I've enjoyed this system. Like I say, I've been using it for over 40 years now. I think it's a good system. So how do you divide multiple attacks into a round? You get the fighters that start getting 2 and 3 attacks in a round, or if you allow weapon specialization at first level, they're getting 1 attack the first round, 2 the second. That's easy. You take the segment that they act in for their first swing, and then you either add 5, or depending on their initiative roll, you just go later. So in other words, The example, character attacks in segment 4. His second attack in the round would be add 5 to it. 4 plus 5 is 9. So he would go in 4 and 9. So to calculate the segment of the second attack in a round, add 5 to the segment in which you first act. It's that simple. So we always know what segment somebody's going in and what they're going to go in. Now, when we get the segment of the second and third attacks in the round, you divide the remaining segments into thirds. In my previous video, I had said you add 5 in both cases. I really don't know why I did that. That's actually incorrect. So the example, the character attacks in segment 1. His second attack would come in segment 5, and his third attack would come in segment 10. Now, if he only had 2 attacks in that round and went in 1, he would go in 1 and 6. The goal here is to always try to divide it as evenly with as much time between attacks as you can. My second example, character attacks in segment 3. His second attack would come in segment 7, and his third would come in 10. Always round up to the next highest segment on an odd result. So 3 going to 10, there's 7 segments in there. We simply add 4 to the first one and 3 to the second. And then the house rule we have here, if a character with 2 attacks acts in segment 10, both attacks happen in segment 10. You could still have to roll a d6 to see when your first attack goes versus when your second attack goes. If a character with 3 attacks acts in segment 10, he only gets 2 attacks in segment 10. The third attack is lost. No more than 2 attacks may take place in the same segment. And that's just a house rule, and I like it. Innate powers and most magic items, unless otherwise stated, require 2 segments to activate. This is a rule we put in years ago. How long does it take to do an Ogre Mage to do a Cone of Cold? We just said, okay, it's going to be 2 segments. It's fast. Upon achieving 10th level or equivalent in any class, the character may, with the DM's permission, activate an innate power or magic item in place of attack. So if I have a sword in one hand and I have, say, a wand in the other, I can go ahead and I can activate the wand in place of my second-hand attack, my secondary attack. So if I would ordinarily get 2 attacks with the sword in the round, I can take 1 sword attack and then activate the wand. We allow this because it brought magic items out and made them more important. This is another thing that I felt has helped our game grow a lot beyond the 12th to 14th level limits of the original books. So I have not had any problems. I've been using this for well over 30 years, and I've never had a real problem with this. The players always will defer to me as to whether they can activate a power, and it's always, always dependent on the power. If it's something they have to concentrate on, of course, then the answer is going to be no. It's really just to make magic items that might be weaker, like a wand, a little more important in combat. And then a character can move up to half their normal damage in place of 1 attack in a round. And I have it here that it can do as many times as he wants. But again, I've got to rewrite some of this. So no, you can move half your normal attack in place of half your normal move in place of an attack. And then we come to healing. This is really just a consolidated page on healing with a couple of notations and changes that we've made in our campaign. Cure light wounds, of course, 1 to 8. Cure moderate wounds, which is in the priest's spell books, and in 2nd edition we've adopted into 1st edition. Cure serious, cure critical, and heal all are as written. The good berry is as written. Potion of healing, extra healing, staff of curing, KO are all as written. Ring of regeneration and vampiric regeneration are as written. Polymorph self, you heal 1d12 upon resuming your natural form, and you only gain that the first 3 times the natural form is resumed. That was getting abused in our campaign. We needed a limit on it. And then the Druid shapeshifting heals 10 to 60% of hit point damage per new form assumed. And that would be the Druid going into turning into a frog and then turning back to a Druid. So that would be 10 to 60% of his points healed 6 times if you want to use all 3. So it's a good way for a Druid to get healing, but he's giving up the ability to shift form. Natural healing, 1 hit point per night of rest. The healing skill, 1, 2, or 3. And then you heal per 2 hit points per night of rest. And then we do allow the mass healing spells. Those are out of 3rd edition. We have adapted them here, and they go as the single-use spell. And then I simply have the regeneration given by having a high con. So as you can see, we've made some changes, and the other thing that I've already shown in the OO, that would be the section right after this, would be the weapon and non-weapon skills and how they're used in our campaign. I did a video on that a few weeks ago. So this is just some stuff that I codified so we would have it as a constant reference. So if somebody else was DMing and they were home preparing their game, they wouldn't have to call me and ask me any questions. They would simply have this at their hands. So that's it. I will be revealing more of Earth's Opus Omnibus as we go forward, specifically the spells. I'll probably do those by level in future videos. Let me know if you want to see more of Earth's Opus Omnibus. And there is some expansion I want to do to it. I've written this over 10 years ago. I've already made changes to the sheets you see here. I made changes to the non-weapon proficiency charts that I already showed you. And I'll be changing some more stuff. It's always an evolving process. Any good game is. So that's all I have for today on page 121. If you like what you heard and saw, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.